Get a good look at this electrifying color by Benjamin Moore called Savannah Green. Is it green? I don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence about that. I'm gonna talk about this special paint color that was recently made one of the 2023 color trends choices by Benjamin Moore, and I think for good reason. By the end of this video, you'll have all the necessary need-to-know information about Savannah Green, but also you'll be equipped with some other colors that can work alongside it. That way, you'll have a wonderful color palette that you can experiment with in your home. Excited?
So excited! So excited!
Of course you are. And I'll be even more excited if you press that like button for me, because that's what we do on YouTube, right? Cool, thank you. So recently we did a video about how the Paint People team, including myself, got to go to New York and see the Benjamin Moore Color of the Year event in person. We did a little behind the scenes video about the trip, and I suggest you watch it before this because holy smokes, did Benjamin Moore really go all out with the whole design of it. Right from the start, you were bombarded by all these beautifully saturated colors, most notably their Color of the Year choice, Raspberry Blush. But even amongst all these other big, vibrant choices, I was drawn to this other color that I found out was Savannah Green because it seemed to cut through all the other colors quite clearly. It's a color with a unique combination of gold and green, and I feel it's sort of volatile and unstable, like a nuclear reaction almost. But in a good way, a good nuclear reaction. It seems to really walk that fine line of sometimes feeling more yellow and then other times feeling more green and then maybe a bit more gold. And a big part of that is the surrounding lighting conditions and the color temperature of that light, but also any other colors that are right next to it, which could skew your perception of it. My little Paint People members and subscribers watching will know that if you want an accurate representation of a paint color, we always recommend testing it before you buy your first gallon. Pick up a mighty board, some tester paint, and then make yourself the biggest, most beautiful Savannah Green tester board you've ever seen. We love mighty boards, and I'm sure you all do too. And for those of you that want to know more about them, I'll leave their information down below so you can check them out later on. Savannah Green has an LRV of 34.67. And for those of you that don't know what that means, it's okay, I'm here to explain it. Essentially, that number is telling us the color reflects 35% of the light that hits it. The lower that number goes, the darker that color will appear to us. So you could say that even though this color looks extremely bright and fluorescent and gleaming, it's kind of on the bottom third of color depth, making it decently dark, or at least very richly saturated. It's funny because normally when you think of deeply saturated colors, you don't think of something that looks like it could sort of resemble the sun. But that's what this color does with the sheer amount of colorant that's inside that can. And also pro tip, coming from a painter, speaking of lots of colorant going into a paint can and then having to use it, I would probably use Aura or at least Regal paint for this color because coverage could become a bit of a struggle with some of the more economical paint lines. Those bright or even dark yellows are always gonna come with an added level of difficulty to apply, but if you're hiring someone to do it for you, then let them deal with that. Just make sure they don't charge you for extra coats. Or if they do, you know that ahead of time. Back to color talk. Now, what I wanna do next is take you to the Benjamin Moore website. And you may have seen this room layout used from time to time in my videos. I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to use it. At least I hope I am. But essentially, this is their lighting visualization tool. And even though the room itself isn't necessarily what your home may look like, I'm pretty sure, what it does show you though is how lighting can affect color. And Savannah Green's shift from morning to afternoon lighting is one of the more drastic changes in coloration I've seen in a while. That cool morning light does give it that ochre greeny feel, but then as soon as that warmer midday light comes in, I almost don't see any green whatsoever. It kind of goes from Dijon to honey mustard. As exciting as this color is, you really have to be careful because of how much the color can shift throughout the day. But that's sort of what you get when you're working with super saturated colors of this caliber. I do find this to be a challenging color to implement in a more standard, traditional home, especially all my classic gray fans watching.
This color might traumatize a few people.
What I will say is this may seem obvious, but it's important. It's the more wall you have, the more color you will see. I find colors like Savannah Green work a bit better, perhaps as an accent wall, or maybe in a room with lots of windows that are taking up a lot of wall space with some big curtains on top, taking up even more wall space. So what you're left with is smaller exposed wall panels, which means less Savannah green all over the place. But if you throw this in a big open 2-story hallway where it's just all wall, it's probably gonna be overwhelming for most people. What about some other colors that can work alongside Savannah green? I would not suggest having an overly complex color palette in this case because Savannah green is just gonna stand out regardless. But I'm still gonna give you a white, a light, a mid-tone, and a dark paint color, as well as a bonus color selection taken from the Color Trends palette that pairs really well with Savannah green. Simply white to start as the white pairing, mainly because it's a great combination of being extremely bright and clean, but also has that hint of warmth, specifically yellow warmth. So natural fit against Savannah green's greeny goldy yellow, right? The light color pairing continues this trend of warm off-white in a color called pale celery. A lot more noticeable yellow here, but it's also a bit creamy rather than feeling like a pure yellow. I don't know, for some reason the color looks like powdered butter, if that exists. Sounds awful. But that's what came to my brain, so I can't judge myself, right? But you can. Please don't. That yellow coloration in pale celery will pale in comparison to Savannah green's vibrancy, which means it's going to soften quite a bit and offer an alternative to a more stark and sterile Simply White, for example. My medium color choice is definitely one that will stand out next to Savannah green, and it's called Tranquil Blue. Now, I like how blues interact with greeny golds like this, but only when it's done properly. You only want a little bit of one if you have a lot of the other, so please don't paint half the walls blue and then half the walls Savannah green, because that's not what I'm getting at. But by introducing a bit of that sky blue, sort of powdery color in smaller doses as accent pieces, it'll help bring forth a little more balance, a bit of that cool, airy touch to help settle things down a little bit. Probably this is the most polarizing choice in this palette. It's not going to be for everyone because you may just want to stick with a more simplistic color scheme here, but it can definitely work and add some yin to Savannah green's yang. I'm going to transition to the dark color pairing, which I find to be absolutely stunning. I love this color. It's also more of a natural fit because it is part of the green family as well, but looks way different than the gold-infused Savannah green. It's called Bavarian Forest, and this dark, kind of shaded jade adds a lush dose of color to help counteract the hyperactivity of the yellow. Honestly, I think I would use Bavarian Forest as the main color in a room, and then have Savannah green as those little pops here and there, just because it'll be a bit easier on the eyes, I think. What's also cool is the more prominent green in Bavarian Forest helps accentuate the gold in the other color just based on how they are put together. But a color that does that even better in my mind is my trendy color pairing for Savannah green, and it's called Starry Night Sky. This is that beautiful, deep purple blue from that Color Trends palette that I really noticed first thing when I walked in. This is the color that made me second guess whether Savannah green was green at all, because look at the two together. It's just so unique and fun and quite bold, but I'm here for it. You gotta see this color next because all these new trendy Benjamin Moore colors really bring something new to the table. I can't wait to see how we all find creative ways to utilize such powerfully vibrant color choices.